Welcome everybody back into Nerd Sesh and welcome back into another season of NFL football. As always, I'm Carson Brabber. Alongside me is Logan Camden. And what an incredible game we were just treated to open up the NFL season. Chiefs, Ravens, AFC title game rematch. Two of the elite teams in football, of course, two of the elite quarterbacks in football. Comes down to the very last play of the game when it appears that Lamar has made some magic happen, fully turned his back on the play, dancing around in the pocket as he does, finds Isaiah Likely, throws a bullet in there up high, Likely makes the grab. His foot is on the line. He has the KD dilemma in the 2021 Eastern Conference semis. And so, of course, the touchdown is ultimately taken back. Incredible game to start the season, Logan. What was your biggest takeaway from this one?
We got a glimpse of what Lamar can do and how he needs to play, man. Like, that was a real prove-it final drive to me with the circumstances that Lamar had up against him, right? We see horrible clock management and game management from the Ravens. They burnt their second timeout early into the second quarter, or the third quarter, with 6:40 left in the third, right? Back against the wall, under 2 minutes left. This is what MVP players are made of, and they almost connect. I mean, if his shoe is one size smaller, man, that's a touchdown. We're going into OT, or maybe not. Maybe the Ravens get it done because it looked like they were going to go for the 2-point conversion. If you didn't see the end of the game, if you're an East Coaster and you're catching up on this tomorrow, we're live right now, I implore you to go back and watch the final drive. That was an awesome ending to this game. I was surprised they were able to get down there, Carson. Again, the situation. Lamar played an awesome game, and I'm going to be critical of him here in a little bit, but I want to emphasize, you touched on this in a tweet you made, how much Lamar was scrambling around. Already matched the season high total from last year of rushing attempts.
Surpassed it by the end of the game.
Yeah, because he had to on that final drive. Lamar has 395 total yards of offense in this game. The Ravens offense total had 452 yards. I mean, Lamar was everything for this offense today. With nothing else going right, you see, I think, legitimate regression from this offensive line. I hope that they can get better as the season goes along. And him and Likely were this team's entire offense, right? Like, he connects with Zay Flowers on stuff underneath. He connects with Justice Hill, who gets some big plays underneath. But it's really him and Likely versus the world in this game. And there's a lot of self-inflicted wounds. The one play that's going to eat Lamar up, I know, at the end of this is the play that he doesn't connect on with Zay Flowers, the second to last play of the game. Clearly wide open in the back of the end zone. And that's not a miscommunication. That's just Lamar missing that ball. And I think that was also a theme. You do see some of Lamar's flaws on display. I'm going to cut him a little slack. I don't think there's a ton of great playmakers here in Baltimore. I really think it's Likely and Zay. Mark Andrews, I think, is going to have to work his way back up to, full strength. And this offense clearly does not trust this offensive line enough to wait for plays to develop. Lamar is forced to scramble and make these plays happen because there's just not enough time. Collinsworth mentions this stat during the broadcast. Lamar's depth of target through the third quarter was just over a yard. And so with that, I am going to cut him a little slack. I think this is a tough situation that he's going to be faced with this year. And it's a tough game script. The Ravens are a team that get up early. They run the ball down your throat. They grind you into submission. When you're playing from behind, that's just something that Baltimore struggles to do. And so you're seeing Lamar forced to make these throws deep down the field where he's off target. And he's a little inaccurate. He's throwing off balanced. And there's always the ball security issue. The Chiefs are the standard, and the Ravens had to play up to this standard. I think this is a great gauge of where you see the discrepancy in the lead contender in the AFC right now, which is the Chiefs, and a second-tier contender where Baltimore is. In these type of games, man, it's the marginal stuff, and I think there's just a little bit of a gap between Kansas City and Baltimore as contenders, and you see it. I'm not counting Baltimore out by any means, but they're a little more flawed, and I think there's just a huge burden on Lamar to be, the kind of offensive engine. He's going to have to be that kind of offensive engine, game in, game out every single week of this season.
And this was my feeling going into the year. It was that last season, the Baltimore Ravens were the most complete the most talented team in the AFC. They were deservedly the favorite going into that title game, and the Chiefs still found a way to win that one. And then the Chiefs got better. You look at their biggest issue, which was a lack of skill position talent, receiver talent last year, lack of dynamic speed and playmakers in that offense. They addressed that. I think that we already felt that for Kansas City in this game. Meanwhile, the Ravens lost some key defensive players. They lose Jadeveon Clowney. They lose Geno Stone. They lose Patrick Queen. And most significantly in this game, because they still have a bunch of high-impact defensive players, they're still going to be a very high-end defense. It is the major regression on the offensive line. Losing Morgan Moses, losing Kevin Zeitler, that's huge. And that was my biggest concern with this team, but I didn't think it was going to be this ugly. I thought they'd go from an elite line, which is what they've been really for Lamar's career. He hasn't had high-end receiving talent alongside him, and so in that sense, he's always had to be this sort of superhero one-man offense, but he's always had a really good line in front of him. I thought they would drop down to like that mediocre range, and it looked worse than that. Obviously, you have the countless illegal formation penalties on Ronnie Stanley for not being aligned with the guard, which clearly the league is going to make a huge point of emphasis calling that throughout this year. You have Linderbaum, though, also with a tough hold on a massive Lamar scramble, but it really is the new starters. It's Rosengarten, it's Falale. Like, those are the concerning spots on this line. And you saw Chris Jones just having a field day, literally hunting matchups that he wanted, switching at the line, playing both inside and out, and consistently flushing Lamar out of that pocket. He has the strip sack early. It was just a complete mismatch at the line of scrimmage. And that's the concern for the Ravens. It is going to require superhuman effort after superhuman effort from Lamar this year in a way that it didn't last year. Last year was the most help he's had around him. Defense was amazing, but I'm talking about the offense. The run game is always really strong in Baltimore, but it felt like a better group of weapons with the emergence of Likely, with Zay Flowers coming in as a legit wide receiver one, which he hasn't had anything really close to up to that point. Now it feels like you're back to, okay, Lamar has to do everything. It's not pocket passing like it was last year. It's all right, I just need to get out in space. I need to make a play. The pass rush is bearing down on me in 2 seconds. What can I do here? You mentioned the average depth of target in the first half. That's when it felt like everything was, all right, we just need to get the ball out as quickly as we can. Little dump offs to Justice Hill, anything that's short and intermediate to Zay Flowers. The second half, when I thought Lamar played a lot better, it was much more, all right, the crazy stat from that half would be, what's Lamar's time to throw? Because I swear he is holding on to the ball 4 or 5 seconds every time out of necessity. He just has to run for his life and try to make a play. And I'm not excusing at all the fact that, in a way, he did cost them this game. Like, he was the only thing keeping them in this game offensively. He also cost them the game because he misses the throw to Likely, which could have been a touchdown, but much more significantly,
to
as
Flowers,
you mentioned.
to Flowers.
No. I'm saying the ball before that to Likely, which was a tougher throw, but he had room, and Lamar overthrew that ball, threw it a little too high and out of reach. But the Flowers one is just like one of the worst missed throws ever. And it's really shocking how far that ball was behind him. Like, you wonder if he did think that Flowers was going to sit down in that open space a little bit more, but why would he do that, right? He's running to more open space. It's an easier throw to you. You don't have to throw it back across your body at all. Like, that was a warm-up throw that he missed, and he almost made an incredible play after, but it doesn't matter. Like, you shouldn't have been in that position to begin with. And I thought that he did a great job on the drive up to that point. He was working the sidelines, taking what the defense was giving him, and then made the one incredible play to Rashad Bateman. That was kind of the story of the day. It was Lamar fighting an uphill battle, doing a lot of good. But at the end of the day, there's just a couple key plays that he misses. The throw to Zay Flowers, of course, at the end. Also, in the first half, he has a real opportunity on a deep ball to Mark Andrews, who was matched up with a much smaller DB. He leads him too far. Instead of throwing that ball a little bit further behind where Andrews would have had the advantage, could have made a jump ball play. He misses the next throw on third down where they had another opportunity at a chunk play. You mentioned some of the clock management stuff. You're playing an Arrowhead, that's tough, but you take a delay of game penalty. You take a timeout because otherwise you would have taken another delay of game. Like, Lamar did a lot of good, but he just wasn't quite clean and perfect enough in a game where his team needed him to be exceptional. And that's why I don't put this loss on him, like saying that he is the problem, because he was far from the problem, but he just didn't quite do enough. He wasn't perfect, and I think that's really what the Ravens needed to win this football game.
These are championship margins. You have to play perfect football against the Kansas City Chiefs to win. And as you mentioned, I think there are some plays in this game where Lamar's just off in terms of inaccuracy. There's one where Zay Flowers wins a route, and if Lamar leads him, if it was a fade route towards the sideline, if he lobs it up, it's probably complete. Instead, he throws more of a bullet. It's broken up. There's other instances where I don't know if Lamar feels like he's Mahomes and he can make a bunch of these throws where he's off balance and throwing on the run, and they're just really tough throws. Again, I think the circumstances were tough in this game, and that's another thing that I want to emphasize here. I don't want to overblow this game. This is week one. This is against probably, in most people's eyes, the championship favorite, the back-to-back Super Bowl champions. This is probably as bad as the Ravens are going to look, right? We talk about the offensive line issues as well. They're matched up against a great Kansas City Chiefs defensive line who had a great game with Chris Jones and George Karlaftis. And also, I think that this is as tough as it's going to get. Now, I think, again, as I mentioned at the top of this, I think this is a good gauge where you can see where the Ravens are and where they need to get to get to being, real championship contenders. I also think that Todd Monken and this offense have to get more creative with throws over the middle. There was just nothing. There were no targets over the middle, and the best chances that they did get were when they ran play action out of single back with Derrick Henry or I formation with Derrick Henry. You got to get something going over the middle, man. There's just not enough routes. When you don't trust your offensive line enough, just put a drag. Give me an in route breaking. There was not a lot of that from Todd Monken, and that's why I do cut Lamar a little bit of slack where I think they can clean their offensive process up a little more and get him some more help. And as I mentioned, too, with the game script, this is not a game that is geared toward Baltimore's strengths. Baltimore's strengths is getting up on you early, being able to run the ball down your throat. When you were playing from behind, now it's similar to the AFC title game because they were trailing from behind, but they completely went away from their game script. They didn't do it in this one. It's a tough game because Lamar has to make those throws. And friend of the show, Gabe Swartz, brought up that quote that Lamar had, F passing the ball from the AFC title game. That's the one area where we really need to see Lamar this year. He had the best passing year of his career last year. Career highs in completion percentage, in passing yards total, in efficiency, basically back to his other MVP season. We're going to need to see Lamar make all the throws. There's no real excuse there. And I do want to touch real quick, too. One, I wonder if Lamar needs one more weapon. You're talking about there's a lack of tier one weapons. I wonder if Devontae Adams, if he would become available throughout the season. I'm hearing rumblings right now that he may be on the trade block. I wonder if it's worth Baltimore putting more chips in on the table and, firing a second or a third round pick or a player in a pick to maybe go and get a player like that if he becomes available. Because I think, one, they need a guy like that that can win one-on-one convincingly, that'll just alleviate more pressure off of Lamar. Or just Monken again. Throwing more routes over the middle. Everything was outside. Everything was towards the sideline, and that works. But you just need to give Lamar more outlets throughout the middle. I'll let you hit on anything more offensively. I do have some defensive things that I want to touch on with Baltimore too, though.
I thought the play calling was also lackluster, and I think that the Ravens could have done more to establish the traditional run game here. I mean, you have Derrick Henry, right? And even though you didn't have any explosive plays from him on the ground, his efficiency doesn't look great. I did think that overall they were able to mostly have decent results when they ran the football with him, and they get behind, but it's never like they're in a deep hole in this game where it has to be every down we're passing. At least as much as it was throughout the second half. Derrick Henry only gets 13 carries in this game. I think that he needs to be more heavily featured, not just for the sake of dominating on the ground with a great running back, but also, as you mentioned, for opening up the play action game, which can be so efficient with Lamar, really establishing the threat of RPOs. Like, there's just more to tap into there with who was your major offseason addition. I do want to give props to Isaiah Likely for just being fantastic in this game, though I think that in so many ways he was excellent. He has the play of the day where he makes two dudes miss on that crazy play after the catch, the long touchdown that keeps the Ravens in this game. But I mean, consistently throughout, right? He has 111 yards. And as we mentioned, 2 of the last 3 plays, he's targeted on potential touchdowns. It feels like he is probably the best partner for Lamar in the sort of improvisational backyard football. I'm moving outside the pocket. You need to find open space. You're a big athletic target. I feel comfortable throwing the ball up there, letting you make a play. Likely did that on multiple occasions in this game.
I was just going to mention, you see it on the play with Nick Bolton where Lamar gets out of the pocket, and you've seen this with Mahomes and Kelsey for some time now. It's the greatest QB wideout combinations. That's when they can kill you and hurt you the hardest, is when it's off script, it's off target, the defense has locked everything up for the first 4 seconds, and then they can make that big play happen. And yeah, they've got a certain chemistry, man, that's really encouraging. I think he is the number 1 target for Lamar here.
Yeah, he had a hell of a game, and I was so happy to see that he wasn't seriously hurt at the end, because that was a scary moment there. My final concern, and we've already touched on this a bit, but as Lamar has to play more of this superhero style, listen, he can do that. Like, I thought that it was nice for him that he got to be this very efficient, more of a pocket passer last year, protecting his body more and could still lead an elite offense. But we also know that he can run 10 to 15 times in a game when needed. He can get you 100 yards on the ground. He can do all this special stuff outside the pocket. My concern there is just the health, because Lamar had his healthiest season last year because it was the safest brand of football that he's played. The 2 years before that, he misses a handful of games both years. And Lamar missing a handful of games alone, that can sink playoff hopes for the Ravens. That can destroy their seeding. It's a massive downgrade. We've seen the difference over his career where they score 28 points per game with him. They score 17 without him. And so that's my concern, because I do think this is the most that we're going to see him run the football since probably his MVP season. And an older Lamar, a slighter Lamar who's deliberately lost some weight, who has dealt with more injuries than he had at that stage in his career, it just concerns me a little bit, because he talks about his legs not feeling great last year in the AFC title game. Well, that's only going to be exacerbated as you wear down more and more, as you're running the football more and more, taking more and more hits. And maybe this was a game where he was just like, all right, this is a playoff environment. We need this win. This is Kansas City. This is huge for revenge. This is huge for seeding. This is huge to set the tone for the year. I'm leaving it all out there. But it didn't really feel like many of these were optional, right? Like, he had to make these plays over and over again. And I just worry. I just worry about sustaining that level of a physical toll on him over a full year.
That is a concern of mine. I do think in other games when they're going to be able to rely on Derrick Henry and get a lead up early in the game and rely on that more, that's not as big a concern for me with Lamar as it is being on time and making the throws that you have to make throughout the game. You see a lot of them on the deep shots where I hate being critical of Lamar because I love him, man. He's one of my favorite players to watch. I think he is the greatest rushing quarterback in NFL history, bar none. Shout out Mike Vick. Shout out Cam Newton. Lamar's on a different level. My concern is him making the throws that he needs to make. I mean, he's overthrowing guys on deep shots by 10, 15 yards completely off. And, you know, again, there's throws where he's just off balance and inaccurate.
Yeah.
When it comes playoff time, for the most part, he was good. But those are throws you can't miss in the playoffs.
For sure.
Mahomes is going to make all of them, man. Mahomes is going to make all of them. There's slim margins.
Tonight, who played better, though? I thought Lamar outplayed Mahomes.
I thought Lamar did.
Mahomes had a much easier path to victory.
100%. We'll get into the Chiefs here in a minute. The final thing I want to talk about with the Ravens is my concerns with their defense. It doesn't come with the defensive coordinator with the loss of Mike McDonald. I want to give a ton of props to Zach Orr and what he did in this game, specifically in the first half. The Ravens did not do Lamar Jackson or this defense any favors with how they played the first half. First of all, penalties on penalties. Second of all, the turnover. Loaf-bread Lamar, classic. Again, he's got a big burden on his shoulders, but that fumble, very costly, gives the Chiefs great field position. Along with that, they go for a fourth down and give the Chiefs great field position. The Ravens defense did a phenomenal job in that first half of bending and not breaking by holding the Chiefs to field goals in that first half. So I want to give them immense props in that respect. And I thought for the most part, Zach Orr coached a phenomenal game, right? You have the one play where Worthy, there's a miscommunication with Marlon Humphrey. He goes down because Pacheco goes in motion. He thinks that there's safety help over the top. There's not. Worthy just burns him on a shot play. I don't really put that on. That's going to happen with how convoluted this Chiefs offense is. And we'll talk about that for a sec. My biggest concern with this team is the linebacking core and them defending over the middle. I really thought you felt the loss of Patrick Queen over the middle.
Agreed.
And I do not think they can play Malik Harrison. That guy cannot play. I mean, 2 really bad plays in this game. He misses a big tackle on Pacheco early. Pacheco burns him for a big game. And then there's another play where Rashee Rice just cooks him off the line of scrimmage. He's slow. He doesn't seem great in coverage. Like, I think defensively, on the defensive line, the Ravens are going to be fine. I trust Odafe Owe. I trust David Ajabo. I trust Matabuke. I trust Pierce. They are going to be hellish rushing the passer and stopping the run this year. I think they're going to be great on the back end if they can stay healthy with Williams and with Humphrey and with Kyle Hamilton. Geno Stone's gone. That's a loss, but I think they're going to be fine there. My concern is over the middle. You just don't have a ton of depth and you don't have a ton of star power. I talked about him in the preseason in our preview. For me, the guy that's going to have to step up to solidify this core and make this defense championship caliber is Trenton Simpson. We saw a glimpse of him tonight. He made a couple of plays. You felt the loss of Patrick Queen, though, tonight. And I really worry about them in coverage over the middle against these quick receivers and just making plays. You've lost a little bit over the middle, and that's a big concern for this defense for me, too. Again, the Ravens, I thought management-wise, played a really poor game with the penalties, with the game management. But I'm worried about them over the middle defensively. That's another big concern for me for Baltimore moving forward.
I do still think we're looking at a very good defense overall. You mentioned, I think that the secondary is really, really strong. I also thought that you got some really good play up front. Not exceptional, but Matabike, Odafe Owe, I thought was impressive. Like, I believe in the front. I believe in the back end. And I still think, obviously, you have Roquan in that linebacking unit. But it comes down to Patrick Queen providing a unique value to this defense. He's one of the fastest linebackers sideline to sideline in football. And he does have an ability to drop back into coverage that is significant because I like Van Noy. That's not what he's doing, right? He, at this stage, is more of a pass rushing linebacker. And then it's that third spot that, as you mentioned, is very much unproven and very much is going to continue to be tested for this team. So I still think the Ravens are really good. I want to be clear. They were right in this football game, but they're not last year's team. Last year, they were overwhelmingly talented, and that is the spot where the offense did let them down. The play calling did let them down. Lamar did let them down in that big game. This year, I think it's going to be Lamar doing a lot of cleaning up for this offense, and I think the defense is still going to be good. One more crazy, impressive Lamar stat from tonight, the fact that he only took 1 sack. You think about how many times he was under duress, and he was able to avoid it, if that's making a play or if that's just throwing the ball away. Incredible.
And the other big takeaway, I think, from this game, you just hit on it. The Ravens have gotten worse, and the Chiefs have gotten better. I mean, the Chiefs are every bit the contender that we thought they were. Rain your praise on the Grim Reaper, Patrick Mahomes. He doesn't play his best game tonight. Honestly, that interception to Roquan Smith is probably one of the worst plays I've ever seen Mahomes make. That's just something that, at this point in Mahomes' career, I expect perfection. And I don't mean that. And like, I'm expecting Mahomes to make every throw, to make every decision, to play perfect football. This was not a perfect game, but it was good enough, and he did his job. But they've got the old weapons, right? You see even though Kelsey doesn't have a masterpiece by any means, he doesn't have a good game, a great game, you see the stress that he inflicts on the defense, how much defensive attention that he is garnering every single snap. The Ravens are diverting 2 defenders to him damn near every time. You see how that opens up plays for everybody else. Pacheco has a good game running the football, receiving out of the backfield. Rashee Rice eats over the middle of the field. And now that they've added Xavier Worthy into the fold, I mean, wow. Like, I was worried, Carson, that, you see some stuff from him in training camp in the preseason. I was worried about him a little bit in terms of physicality with the game. But when you have all of these other pieces that can take so much attention, Pacheco, Kelsey, You get him one-on-one, Worthy can win. He's got the end around. He literally scores a TD on the first touch of his career on an end around. That's a massive play. And then you have one little miscommunication, and it was that double motion.
Yeah.
That's the other thing about this Chiefs offense that is so deadly. The offensive process. When you have a union of one of the greatest offensive minds in football and Andy Reid and a quarterback that is equally brilliant, you can just do things to defenses that crush them. That touchdown to Xavier Worthy, it wasn't just because of the motion of Pacheco underneath. You already had pre-snap motion with Worthy. Worthy goes out wide. And that immediately, that already gets the defense thinking, okay, we need to adjust. The Pacheco motion out to the flat just crushed them. It befuddled Marlon Humphrey. You get Worthy wide open. And that's something that we touched on in the preseason, Carson. They didn't have these kind of home run hitters last season. No. This is a game they didn't even have Hollywood Brown. This is not the Chiefs offense at full strength. This is just with Xavier Worthy. They've gone up another level, man. And it pains me to say that, right? I am actively praying on the Chiefs' downfall. I'm not going to act like I'm not. I don't want to see Patrick Mahomes win a third Super Bowl. I already went through Tom Brady's reign of tyranny. News,
buddy. Well, he's already got 3 of them.
Yeah, I'm just talking about 3 straight, man. I don't want to see it. But, you know, my objectivity, I can't wipe away. Like, the Chiefs have gotten better. This offense is still as brilliant as it ever was with the brilliance of Reid and Mahomes. And now you have added dynamite to this offense with Xavier Worthy. Frankly, I'm scared of what we're going to see if Hollywood Brown is, you know, anything that he's cracked up to be, man. They have just got a surplus of weapons now.
Yeah.
They're loaded, man. They're really, really scary. And I don't see them taking a step back, man. I expect this week in, week out. And again, this is against a damn good defense, man. They crushed them.
And that's the reason that I picked the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl again this year, man. If they were running it back with last year's team, as impressive as it was that they won the Super Bowl, right? As outstanding as that defense was, I probably wouldn't have banked on them running it back again just because the receiving room was so brutal. The offense never really exploded. Mahomes was just amazing. They did just enough, and they won on the back of incredible quarterback play and coaching and defense. The reason that I've been saying I think this is the best Chiefs team that we're going to see, I think this is the most complete Chiefs team, is that they still have an awesome defense. You lose a little bit of something with L'Jarius Sneed, of course, who was really, really good, but you still have Spags, you still have Chris Jones, you still have McDuffie, you still have Karlaftis. Like, there are a lot of exceptional pieces with this defense. Leo Chenal, who's been awesome. And then offensively, you just have more explosiveness. Like, it's remarkable how dire things got around Patrick Mahomes last year, and they still won the Super Bowl. And that's where the Worthy conversation is going to be a very interesting one after this week, because I think there are some people who are going to look at the 2 touchdowns and they're going to look at the raw speed and they're going to get overly excited and they're going to say, oh my God, they found Tyreek Hill 2.0. Here's what I'll say. First of all, scoring off of a reverse and a complete blown coverage where the corner is literally fully expecting safety help and it's just not there. Those are not 2 normal NFL wide receiver touchdowns. So we can acknowledge that, and at the same time acknowledge that his speed is massive. And as importantly as anything, he doesn't have to be all world. He doesn't have to be a super polished, complete receiver. His speed is enough to make him a productive weapon in this offense. When you have Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, you are going to make the most out of that skill set. And their wide receiver 2 last year, Logan, was Justin Watson. And respect to the white man out there catching passes, making the most out of what God gave him. It's just not that much that God gave him. Like, now you're talking about putting the fastest man in NFL history, according to the 40, in this offense, with Andy Reid, with Patrick Mahomes, and we haven't seen Hollywood Brown, who's not just another sub 4.3 guy, who has always produced at the NFL level, who is a more complete receiver. That is the thing with Worthy. Like, nobody compare him to Tyreek Hill, please, because the route running is not comparable. And as you mentioned, the physicality is not remotely comparable. Tyreek is strong. He is physical. But what Xavier Worthy is a game-breakingly fast football player. You already felt that. There's always going to be ways to get him involved. I mentioned a reverse. That's not necessarily a traditional way for a receiver to score. Xavier Worthy will make big plays out of some of that gadgety stuff frequently because he's the fastest dude on the field.
And you can also just weaponize him. You see it on a couple of plays in this game too, where he just wins on drag routes because he is just horizontally faster. Like he's going to be great on third downs. And I also do want to emphasize too, I really hope people don't compare him to Tyreek Hill. I mean, Tyreek Hill is one of the handful of greatest receiving talents we have ever seen in this league. He is the total package. He's not just really fast. Obviously, that's what makes him great, but he does so many other things. It's also because the Ravens deliberately had to divert attention to the other guys like I'm talking about. They came in with a game plan that said, we're going to X out Kelsey. You saw that basically every passing snap with how much personnel they put on him. But also, Rashee Rice was killing them on slants. Like, it wasn't even creative.
Slant Boy 2.0.
It wasn't even creative progressions where they're picking apart zones and, creative play calls. It is Rashee Rice matched up against a linebacker that is frankly outmatched, burning him immediately and catching him. So they had to divert more attention, which just leaves Worthy on an island. And that is where the Chiefs are most deadly. When you have to commit all this attention to the other guys, when you have Pacheco in the backfield and you got to load up the box and you got to put two guys on Kelsey and you got to put two guys or, put a safety in a corner, or at least monitoring Rashee Rice, that's when you can put one-on-one matchups for Hollywood Brown when he comes back and Xavier Worthy every game. And those guys can consistently win with burners. That just makes the Chiefs offense that much scarier. It's terrifying to think about, man.
And you can almost forget like how absurdly explosive the Chiefs offense used to be because, I mean, basically Patrick Mahomes changed modern defense, right? And now he's always going to see two high safeties and the personnel has changed, of course, lost Tyreek, and he's had to become so much more of just a brilliant surgical quarterback, not doing as much of the unbelievable over the top, ridiculous 40+ yard chunk plays, but like, the Chiefs were top of the league in 20+ yard passes, 40+ yard passes, towards the top of the league every year, basically. And then last year, they were below average in both of those categories, and they still won the Super Bowl. And now I think they're going to make a return closer to the top of the league. And it's not like today was a crazy explosive performance from them, but you see, it does make a difference. Hollywood Brown is going to get out there, and they're able to meld this with the fact that they do have a legit emerging number one receiver in Rashee Rice, who I think is probably going to be the most productive weapon for Mahomes this year. I think that Travis Kelce is still very good. However, I do not think that he is going to be the same week-to-week dominant force that he was at his peak, because he wasn't that last year. I mean, he made unbelievable plays, had unbelievable performances in the playoff run. He and Mahomes still have such incredible feel. He has such a high IQ finding soft spots in the defense. Like, he is still going to be a very, very valuable weapon. He ate up double teams last year even more than ever because of the group around him. But he is aging. He has lost a little bit of a step. And I think that Rashee Rice is a really, really good receiver. You mentioned it wasn't flashy today. It wasn't remarkable. But I think that he brings a really valuable dimension, getting open over the middle of the field as Kelsey does. And then you have this sort of crazy speed around those two guys who are more consistent route running, possession sort of dudes. And then, of course, Isaiah Pacheco. How much the Chiefs leaned on the run game down the home stretch of last season in the playoffs, particularly. Pacheco, again, they lean on heavily in this game. And he makes some massive plays, keeps his legs churning in the touchdown, which I was kind of surprised they didn't blow dead. But hey, he got in there. Shout out Mahomes. He came in with the push too. And then the incredible conversion in the fourth quarter where, I mean, he just keeps his legs moving, right? Rolls over a dude, puts his hand down, regains his balance, and he's going again. He's so physical. His engine just does not stop. And so it's a really, really balanced, complete offense now. And we haven't even seen all the toys in place.
Yeah, I mean, I'm expecting at this point the Chiefs probably be the best offense in football this year. They are really the complete package. I mean, I think so at this point.
Better than the Niners?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, maybe I'm getting a little too jazzed up after one game, but
are we talking gun to my head, this is the offense I want in one game, or are we talking highest scoring regular season offense? Because I don't think they'll be the latter.
I think both. I mean, I just don't see any weaknesses at this point, right? Again, Andy Reid's genius pre-snap motion, and I love it because almost every time they line up, he's putting somebody in motion, which is either diverting attention, it's making defenders switch off if they're in man coverage, or my favorite aspect of it is it's letting Mahomes know what coverage they're in at the line of scrimmage, right? It's everybody. If you're not doing this, right, that was a problem. And I'm going to talk about the Steelers for a second here, but like Matt Canada never used it, right? It just helps you and helps your quarterback if he knows how to read the field. It opens up so many things, right? You get a free TD with Xavier Worthy, but I just look at all the weapons with Worthy, with Brown, with Pacheco, and you talk about Kelsey taking a step back. I do think Rashee Rice is going to outproduce him this year. And it's a component of a couple of things. It's the fact that Kelsey gets so much defensive attention, but I do think he's lost a little bit of pop. Kelsey's probably still the go-to guy. You see it on a couple of plays where the play breaks down and Mahomes has to get out of the pocket and he finds Kelsey because they just have that immaculate chemistry. But I think Rashee's probably going to outproduce him. But the fact that you now have the home run hitters with the most brilliant offense QB and head coach mind of all time, the union of these two brilliant geniuses with the greatest QB talent of all time, with an elite running game, I would take the Chiefs over, I think, everybody else. I'm going through my head here. I think the Cowboys could very well be up there again this year just because of Dak and CD. I think the Dolphins are going to be there. A lot of people aren't going to like this take. I know they lost Diggsy. The Bills are going to be up there again because they have Josh freaking Allen. I would take the Chiefs to be, again, the offense that I want, and the Ravens will probably be hovering around there too. I think the Chiefs' defense is great. I think the Ravens are still going to be a great offense. Yeah. But if you ask me to take, I would probably take the Chiefs to lead the offense or lead the NFL in scoring offense, and to be the offense I want the most, even more than the Niners.
Lions, we have to mention in this conversation too. I think the Chiefs are a top 5 offense, and I think, gun to my head, like, they probably are the number 1 offense that I want in the playoffs. And especially if I just need one drive, I mean, you can basically give me Patrick Mahomes and anybody out there, but it is a more complete group. I do just think, like, the explosiveness you get from like the Niners offense last year is another level. The Dolphins, we'll see if they can quite replicate last year's success, but I mean, that's the fastest offense that we've ever seen, right? The Chiefs have really improved the group around Mahomes. It's still certainly not the most talented in football, but one more addition who I do like is Samaje Perine as more of a receiving back. I think that he could have had a third down conversion that basically would have ended the game if Mahomes had just found him wide open in the flat. Really rough misthrow from him there. That would have allowed them to keep driving, go into field goal range, potentially go up 3 scores or eat more clock, go up 13. Like, that was not a good moment for Mahomes, but that shows you the utility of Perine in this offense. And that's another thing, right? They put up 27 against a really good defense. Mahomes didn't play very well. They
left some meat on the bone.
They did leave some meat on the bone. And listen, Mahomes was fine. He did what he needed to. And I thought that first drive of the fourth quarter, he was really good. I thought that's when he started getting out of the pocket, making some throws, made a play with his legs to convert a third down. He did enough, but, you know, he's capable of playing much, much better than he did because I think he's the best football player that we have ever seen. So these Chiefs are really, really good, man. They're a really complete football team, and it's scary for everybody else. Last year was as good a chance as you're going to get. It's as flawed a Chiefs team as you're going to see, and they still found a way to do it. What do you think about the Justin Tucker fall off? Justin Tucker being washed. How do you feel about that?
Oh, man. He's not washed. He missed some last year.
Not what he used to be.
1 of 5.
Not what he used to be.
Would you take any kicker in the league today over Tuck?
Give me Brandon Aubrey.
I mean, Aubrey's up there. I think who's the McPherson probably?
Yeah, McPherson hasn't quite been the same since his miracle playoff run. He's very good, but
I'm partial to my boy Chris Boswell because I think Bos has consistently been underrated. But I think I'd probably still take Tucker over anybody. But I mean,
Aubrey's on the short list here
Aubrey's
too.
That guy, man. Aubrey's
guy. Crazy. We'll see if he can replicate it. Listen, Justin Tucker is the GOAT kicker. There's no doubt about it. But he has fallen off. It is funny though, because like everything with kicking, when it comes to the kicks that actually matter, that are of a high degree of difficulty, you get a small sample size, right? We're talking about 6 kicks over 2 years. And it's like, whoa, Tucker's 1 for 6 on the big ones, the 50-yarders. But let me tell you something, Logan. I thought he was going to miss that kick
Really?
before he took it. And I
I
don't know that I've ever
oh,
thought that about Justin Tucker before.
I had no doubt in my mind that he was gonna fucking bang that, man. Excuse my
Well,
French.
language, Jesus.
Excuse my
Last 2
French.
years, he hasn't quite been the same. And Matthew Sponhauer is rejoicing because he's the biggest Justin Tucker hater ever. And listen, he's winning. It's paying off for him. Sadly, negativity wins.
I say positivity will always win out, my friends.
That's beautiful.
Don't buy into that.
What do you think about the new kickoff?
I hated it. I hate it, man. I think it's so dumb. All right. I noted. I don't know, man. Some people are like, if you're just afraid of change. Let me tell you something. There's something about the numbers that the NFL is pushing that doesn't quite make sense to me. How is it that this is apparently the most injury-prone play in football, but also people never return kicks anymore? I just don't. That doesn't make sense to me. That we always say more players get hurt on this play because of high-speed collisions, but also you tell me last year that people never return the ball, that we had like the highest rate of touchbacks ever. That doesn't make sense to me.
I think they're saying as a percentage of live plays, as a percentage of the time in which the kick is actually returned, it's the most dangerous play in football.
I don't know. I think it takes a little bit away from like the excitement. Obviously, I've been watching football for a really long time, so I liked when it was just so rare. I don't know. I am a traditionalist. I hated the 17-game season introduction. We have an extra week of football. Maybe it will grow on me. Do you like it, or are you a fan? To me, it's new things. Change is hard, and I know new things are tough to adapt to. But it's just a little weird.
It is weird. Player safety should be the top priority here, especially because you can change the fabric of a kickoff in a way that you cannot change any other play in football, right? Without like really messing with the legitimacy and the core of the game. So I'm for that, but yeah, I think their vision was this is a way to have a safe play that also puts the ball in play, because last year, as you mentioned, because such a low percentage of kickoffs were returned, concussions on kickoffs went down by 60%. But again, that's because the ball isn't actually being put in place. So their thought is, okay, here's a way that we can have exciting kick returns. And theoretically, I think there's supposed to be a little more potential for explosive plays. But we didn't see a lot of kickoffs taken out in this game. And I also think that having a touchback go to the 30, I mean, that really incentivizes the touchback.
The one issue I really have, because I think I'm okay with this in the long run. Like, I think it'll inevitably grow on me. I think we'll get more accustomed to it. The one issue I really do have with the new kickoff rules is the fact that they have basically erased one of the most exciting plays in football history, which is the surprise onside kick. The fact that now you have to announce that you're going to do an onside kick in two of the biggest games in NFL history, we saw it broken out and it worked. People forget it. Bill Cowher did it in Super Bowl 30 against the Cowboys with a surprise onside kick, and it worked. The Steelers got the football. I'm not sure if they scored. Obviously, they were going to never win that football game because Neil O'Donnell got paid off, allegedly. I have to say that here because that bum threw 2 interceptions to Larry Brown when there was no receiver in the vicinity. Thank you, Neil O'Donnell.
But he wasn't wearing his contact lenses.
Yeah, of course. Blind bastard. Anyway, we saw it work and actually have an impact on the outcome of the football game in the Saints-Colts Super Bowl, where Sean Payton does the infamous one that everybody remembers, and that changed the fabric of the game. So to me, that's the one part of the kickoff rule that I think is really dumb, and I really don't like that. Hey, everybody, we're doing an onside kick. You know, it's that
are onside kicks a dangerous play as a percentage? Like, I get the chaos and the scramble of everybody going for the ball, but just anecdotally, I can't think of that being a particularly dangerous play in my life. I mean, the surprise onside kick, I guess, is different because everybody's
Well,
not
I think the
aligned and you
reason they
have
do
more
it
high
now is
speed.
because I think it's because we line up differently on onside because they changed
Yeah.
how you line up
Yeah.
initially and everybody's 5 yards apart instead of
Yeah.
old times when you would line
Mhm.
up, the same. That's why the surprise onside kicks work is because you're not
Mhm.
expecting it and you're lined up in a different formation. I think
Yeah.
that's why they did it. To me, and I was always a supporter of this, I thought they should have done, if you wanted to get rid of the onside kick or still have the onside kick as an option to go to on kickoffs, I thought the correct play would have been to give one team an untimed down, make it a 4th and 20, a 4th and 25,
Mhm.
whatever distance you want to make it, and have them be able to do that once or twice a game where it's still a really hard conversion and you're still
Yeah.
really unlikely to make it, right? You still have similar odds to the onside kick. And again, if you don't get it, the team gets the football right where you have it. They have great field position, right?
Mhm.
It's still a little more balanced. I would have liked if the NFL had explored that.
Yeah.
I'm not a new fan of the onside kick being basically removed.
Yeah, I think the 4th and 25 idea is kinda weird, though. I mean, that would be so foreign.
It
It would be,
is.
"Alright, let's eliminate the notion that this is a kickoff altogether, and now it's just a play from scrimmage." I think that that would be a little bit too weird. So, we'll see. Maybe the new kickoff grows on us. Hopefully, it ends up being a much safer play. I think that that should be the real upside here. I don't know that it's ever gonna be better as a football play. But then again, the kickoff was already in a position where 90% of them were touchbacks anyways. So unfortunately, just not quite the exciting play that it used to be, no matter what. Any more thoughts on this game, Logan, either side,
Yeah,
before
yeah,
we move on?
real quick. I got just
Mhm.
one more about the Chiefs. I want to touch on their defense because we raved about the offense. I think the pass rush is going to be great again. I think you're looking at one of the best pass rushes, probably a top 10 unit in the league. Chris Jones is a top 5 defensive player on the planet. The guy is so disruptive. You can line him up outside, you can line him up inside against a, you know, basically brand new offensive line. He's going to feast. George Karlaftis is a monster. That guy is a diamond in the rough. I think the Chiefs did a phenomenal job drafting. And I think the secondary is going to be solid. I know they lose Snead. The one area that I am concerned about the Chiefs defense is over the middle of the field. I'm a little bit worried with the loss of some of the personnel from last year and just some of the broken coverage. Like, it wasn't a ton of plays. And again, the Ravens didn't really attack over the middle of the field. I'm a little bit worried about the linebacking core, but it doesn't have a major bearing on my outlook for the Chiefs season. But I think against teams that have better receiving talent with better quarterbacks that can actually attack over the middle of the field,
Mhm.
with better offensive lines, I think we may see the Chiefs get burned a little bit more there. But that's a really marginal. I trust this defense overall. I think they'll be probably a top 10 unit again this year just because of the strength of everybody, the coaching, the
Mhm.
secondary, the D line. I am a little bit worried about the linebacking core in Kansas City.
Yeah, linebackers and coverage were not very good for either of these teams. Tranquil had the rough PI on Flowers. Nick Bolton, I thought, struggled in coverage in this game, but I do still think it's going to be quite a good defense overall. I'll say one last thing about the Chiefs offense. We were talking about Worthy. I do think that he is a real positive addition to this offense, but immediately everybody's first reaction to this is, how could the Bills hand the new nuclear weapon to their arch rival? How do they do this? Of course, the Bills also famously allowed the Chiefs to get Patrick Mahomes. I do think people don't fully understand maybe who the Bills got in exchange for that. They got Trey White straight up for their pick, and they used those draft assets to acquire Tremaine Edmonds and Deion Dawkins. Those draft picks that they got from Kansas City were part of trades to get the picks that would become those guys. So it's a pretty good haul when you consider that you get Josh Allen anyways the year after. But everybody's talking about how the Bills just should not do business with the Chiefs. Here's what I'll say. The jury could not still be more out on this. First of all, we need to see what Keon Coleman is, because the Bills took a receiver of their own 5 picks later. And I do think, although Worthy's speed would be really fun to watch along with Josh Allen, he hasn't played with a dude who is that fast. John Brown was really fast back in the day, but that was brief and that was a really dynamic connection. Worthy takes it up another level though. But I think the Bills want a true number one receiver in the post Stephon Diggs world. And I think Keon Coleman has more potential to be that than Worthy. I think that also he brings a dimension of size and explosiveness at that size that Josh hasn't played with. So they're both unique athletes. I think that there's more true number one potential with Coleman, whereas Worthy is the sort of dude who you drop in an offense day one, and it's like he's just so fast that, yes, he can make explosive plays, but you're not going to lean on him down after down. And the Bills need somebody who can be that. I love Khalil Shakir. I love Dalton Kincaid, but I think that they want a true number one. And so as a Bills fan, I'm not necessarily sweating it at this point. I'm not freaking out. Keon has to be good. If Keon's not good and Worthy is, which I think Worthy will produce in this offense because of who he's with and because of his speed, well, then, yeah, then it's brutal. But I don't understand why the presumption is just that, like, Xavier Worthy is amazing. I think that, again, he's an awesome injection into this offense, but then also, like, we're just going to neglect that the Bills took their guy. I think it's just a little bit soon. It's a little bit presumptuous for me.
I think it's probably going to take a little bit for people to come around to the realization. Like, I think this is probably a more long-term bet. Very much how you bought stock, right? On the Costco guys when they were on their come up, right?
One of my brilliant plays.
You're buying stock on Keon Coleman now, right? So Xavier Worthy may outproduce him potentially this year because he's in a great offense, but I think in the long term it may pay out. Much like,
will he outproduce him though? Because 2 touchdowns week 1 is awesome. Who's going to get more of the target share? Coleman is going to get more of the target share.
Do you think? I don't know. I mean, do you think is Coleman your one? I mean, I think Kincaid and Shakir would probably outproduce Coleman.
I think Hollywood Brown is going to outproduce Worthy, though. I think Worthy is going to have explosive plays. I think he'll have a play or two a game where you just go, Jesus Christ, that dude is the fastest person I've ever seen. But obviously, I mean, Rice and Kelsey, they're your possession down to down guys. And I think that Hollywood is a much more complete receiver at this point. So I think that Coleman is slotted higher within his receiving hierarchy than Worthy is.
That's fair. I do think Coleman, it might take him it may not be in the first couple of weeks where you see the value pay
I agree.
out. I think it's going to take him, and this kind of happens with all rookies. It's going to take him a little bit to get acclimated to the game. But once I think he is adapted, I think he's going to be really good. But it just may not pay out in the first half of the season. I think he's going to, as most rookies do, I think he's going to grow as the year goes along.
I think he needs to polish up on technique. I think his hands could get a little bit better. I think that he could improve a bit adjusting for some lower thrown balls. Like, I don't think he's some polished final product. I just think Shakir is really good. I think Shakir will outproduce him. But I think Keon Coleman's going to get more than 700 yards this year because of just where he fits into the offense. There's just a big hole to fill with Stephon Diggs gone.
And on the trade point, you do the deal with whoever gives you the best assets. I don't really care what team it is. You know, if the Steelers needed to do a deal with the Ravens, we do it. You know, I'm not, it doesn't matter.
And there is no world in which the Bills traded the pick that became Xavier Worthy and they wanted Xavier Worthy. Like, they preferred Keon Coleman. So it's not like Brandon Beam was like, oh my God, I just gave him the fastest. We wanted the fast guy. Oh my God. That's not what happened. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. But I just know that narrative is going to come out of this game. And I think it's a little bit silly. Real quick, Logan, Packers, Eagles tomorrow. We'll be back. We'll be live, baby. What's your gut prediction for that one?
Oh, man, this is a silly, silly game. It's in Brazil.
Come to Brazil.
A lot of travel, into this game, obviously getting from the U.S. down here. Apparently, too, I read somewhere, I can't confirm it, but I think the Eagles have like a really close stay to the hotel, and apparently the Packers, it's going to take them an hour or two to get to the stadium. So I don't know, man. That's weird. That's wonky.
Got to factor that in.
I think the Eagles are the more talented team, so I'm going to take them. But their secondary does scare me a little bit because I really like Jordan Love, and I'm afraid that he could connect on some big shot plays that break the game open. That's the one thing that scares me about Philly. But I'm going to pick the more talented team, so I'll take Philadelphia.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take Philly as well. I do think that Philly needs to improve. We need to see improvement defensively. We need to see a bounce back season from Hurts, but it kind of feels like we're just going to feel the explosiveness of that offense in this opening week. I think Jordan Love is legit. I think Jordan Love is going to be really good. I think these two teams are very much on par, but I do think that Philly is more talented. And I think that if that defense can lock in, like, they have the potential to be very disruptive up front. And it's a pretty easy offensive formula, man. When you have this line, when you have a running back of Saquon's caliber, when you have these receivers, I think it's fun. I think that that's probably a shootout of a game, probably a little bit more high scoring than this one. I'll take Philly as well. I took Kansas City in this one. Bada bing, bada boom, 1-for-1 on the year, baby. Your boy is perfect. Also, I will say, on the great kicker debate, a lot of people in the chat were mentioning Dicker the kicker. He's on the short list as well. He's been very, very, very good since he came into the league. All right, everybody. Appreciate you tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the football. As I just said, we'll be back tomorrow night. We'll be back on Sunday. It's football season, and we could not be more happy. It is just such an incredible feeling to have football back in the air. If you want more of our content, and if you want to catch up on everything before the rest of these teams kick off, you can find all of our season preview content. We've gone division by division, talked about every team. We gave our award picks, our playoff picks before the year. That is all on our YouTube channel, and you can listen to all of our shows across audio platforms. We also have trivia from throughout the summer, and we have NBA content, lists, rankings, all that good stuff. We also have some specific YouTube content, video essays, things of that nature, going in depth normally about the NBA. That's just on our YouTube channel. If you want more of our content still, you can check us out across social, TikTok, Instagram at NerdSesh, Twitter at nerd_sesh to see clips from the show, graphics from the show, and our short form trivia content. If you want our merch, you can check that out at thevolume.com. And if you want to chat with the fellas, especially now as we're getting an NFL season, if you want a place to sound off and get out all your takes, you can do so at the NerdSesh Discord. The link to that is at the link tree across our social media bios. So with that, as always, appreciate you guys. I've been Carson Brabber.
I have been Logan Camden.
And this was NerdSesh.